Oh, me. Listen, have you ever driven out on the highway, driven past a car that was stopped, pulled over at the shoulders, and had its hazard lights on blinking? Clearly they're in some sort of trouble, and felt that flicker, just a flicker of someone should stop. Yeah, I mean, be quiet, Stanley. I've had that feeling, somebody should stop and help, and be there to assist folks. I have that thought right before I take the next exit, and never think about it again. But already I'm composing sometimes the excuse, that I'll never say out loud. I would have stopped, but, I had somewhere to be. I'm not mechanically inclined. That's what AAA's for anyway. I mean, nobody plans. I don't think you plan to be the person that drives on past. We have places to go, and a remarkable talent for finding these reasons not to help. That flicker of somebody should, or with me it's more like I hope somebody stops because I'm really caring. Or even a quick prayer like, Lord, send someone to them. Or Lord, I'd raise my hands to you right now, but I got them on the steering wheel. I'm driving, but as I zoom by, check the time, make sure I'm not late for whatever Christian activity I'm on the way to. That moment when you talk yourself out of being the one God sent, that's the moment that we're talking about today. That's the moment that Micah had in mind in Micah 6, verse 8. What we're going to be looking at. Last week we kicked off this series looking at the classic blueprint for a life that pleases God. Micah 6 is just perfect. The prophet drops this bombshell question: what does the Lord require of you? What's the Lord want from us exactly? I mean, what is the life that pleases God? Not what does God refer or prefer you do. What's God suggesting that we do? Micah's asking the question, what does he require of his people? And the answer is beautifully and brutally simple. And it is this: He has shown you, O mortal, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? To act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. Last week we camped out on act justly. What's that? It's the same word as justice. It's setting things right, holding the line, doing what is fair and righteous, but doing the right thing by people, remembering that they are made in the image of God. Justice is not without mercy. Not if it's got anything to do with God's justice. It's not. But notice Micah here, he takes us in a slightly different direction. He adds, he's got three of them. Today we're going to slow down on the second one, and it is love mercy. And I think it might be the hardest of the three, love mercy. Notice Micah doesn't just say show mercy or do mercy. He says love mercy. Love it. Love mercy. In Hebrew, the word behind mercy is chesed. It's a guttural sound, goes way back in your throat. And, in some of those pronunciation guides, it'll just, it'll say pronounce it like it's got a K on the front and then an H. But I was sitting there going, chesed. And I knew that couldn't be right. I might not have been doing that. I don't know. But it's a word that's got no equivalent in the English language. Literally, there's no word that you can use to translate chesed. You look at, depending on the translation you're using and the context in which the word is used, it's so rich, It comes out as mercy, kindness, love, steadfast love, other things. And they all get close, but none of them is perfect. It's the word that the Old Testament uses to describe God's stubborn, covenant-keeping, won't let go of you kindness toward people who've done absolutely nothing to earn it or deserve it. It's giving somebody what they need, not what they deserve. That's God's chesed, mercy. For us, chesed, that's God's chesed. For us, it's love that keeps its promises. Long after the feelings are not there. It's love that made promises and keeps the promises. After the feeling that inspired the promises is gone, worn off. It has a spine to it. I can't tell how many couples I've talked to, and some recently who are talking about maybe, getting a divorce or something like that because they just don't feel the same way toward each other. I say, well, you don't feel the same way. Oh, you must be married. Okay. That's exact. Love keeps its promises long after the feeling has worn off. And it's different from the kindness that we trade back and forth every day. Ordinary kindness is sort of a transaction. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, kind of a thing. But mercy that has to be earned isn't mercy at all. Chesed only shows up when it isn't owed. And here's what trips us up, and it almost freaks me out every time I read it. Micah says, love mercy. Love mercy. Which means God's not looking for people who dispense compassion the way a vending machine dispenses candy, mechanical, occasional, when the situation practically forces it out of your hands. He's looking for people who delight in it. Let me say it a little more clearly. He is commanding you to become the kind of person who delights in mercy. And let me tell you right up front, the way to do that is not wait until it's convenient, not wait until you feel good about it, not wait until all things are in order and you have time and all this stuff. That's not what God's saying. He said He wants people for whom mercy and acts of mercy are not a chore on the spiritual to-do list, but something closer to a reflex from the heart. You just love this. You love it. I want to be honest with you. I think that's a really high bar. It's a really high bar. Most of us are pretty good at wanting mercy. We're real good at needing mercy, but we're pretty good at wanting mercy. We're outstanding receivers of mercy. Shower me with good stuff, God. Somebody cuts me off in traffic, and I want to let them know that was the wrong thing to do. I want a boss that overlooks a bad Monday, but remembers, the best times that we've had. Love mercy. The God who forgets our sins. We love mercy when we're on the receiving end. But the verse is asking something else from us entirely. It's not saying, love the mercy that you receive. Who needs to command that? You already do that. Everybody does that. That's not what God's asking us to do. Love the mercy that you receive. I think that's sort of assumed. The verse really is asking something totally different. That's why when Jesus wanted to present mercy, He told a story about a religious lawyer who wanted to argue the fine print of loving your neighbor. Jesus didn't hand him a definition. He handed him a road. When he wanted to show him what mercy looks like in real time, he told a story about a guy who gets mugged on the road from Jerusalem to Jericho. And the lawyer asks him, who's my neighbor? Meaning, what's the minimum that I have to do to be okay with God so that I can feel decent about myself but not be troubled too much, Jesus flips the question. Instead of answering the question, who counts as a neighbor, he tells a story that ends with which of these three was neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of robbers. Focus shifts from who deserves my love, or how can I be neighborly? It's not about who qualifies, but how can I help? You remember the story, right? From the Gospel of Luke, the priest and the Levite walk by, they see this guy. They come one after another, but they see this guy who's there lying by the road. He's been all beat up, and they're religious professionals. They know Micah 6:8 by heart. They're probably walking along singing, He has shown the old man what is good. Ew, walk around this guy, They see him, they walk around, they want anything to do with him. And then a Samaritan comes along. The guy, everybody in Jesus' audience would have assumed right off the bat. I'm not exaggerating. They would have assumed that he was going to be the villain in the story. And he's the one who stops, bandages the wounds, loads the man on his animal, pays the bills, promises more. Now, because God has already lavished his love on us, on people who never earned it, he calls us to love mercy the way that Samaritan did, with eyes that see, a heart that feels, and hands that act. Because mercy is not a single decision. It's a sequence of 3 movements that happen in your life and in mine, and they're each one something that you can practice this week. Each one something you can take with you and do. Mercy. The first movement is this. Mercy opens its eyes. Some of us, I might need another step first because I like to go around like this. It's tough when you're driving, but it's really convenient if you don't want to have to stop and be bothered by people or whatever. Mercy opens its eyes. Luke's version is uncomfortably specific. It says the priest saw him. Oh, you saw him. I've told you about the story about me on Ponce and eating tacos with my family, cars whizzing by. We're sitting practically in the road, and there's a guy between us and the road, just over a little brick wall. Wasn't tall enough for my taste that day. Open your eyes. Levite comes to the place, saw the man, did the same thing. They didn't fail to notice, they noticed, but they did what all of us do. We close our eyes, we avert our eyes, and we negotiate our way past it. We've got this inner monologue. I'm so used to it, I just say, okay, brain, play Homeless Man number 12, and, I'll just think about tacos for a minute. I would stop, but I have to be there at 12:15. I've got a meeting I have to lead. Surely somebody will handle it. Only the Samaritan saw him and was moved. The priest and the Levite, they didn't lack compassion in general. They weren't worse than other people. That's the problem. They were just like other people. Jesus got bigger stuff for you. It's got more important stuff for me. We're not supposed to be like other people. Listen, friend, you cannot love mercy from the other side of the street. You can't cross the street when you see somebody who's broken. You can't avert your eyes and love the person who's in desperate need of help. There's a practical starting point this week. And here it is. Pick one person. One person that you've been mentally stepping over or around. Somebody that you see maybe daily, maybe every morning at the breakfast table. It could be a neighbor, it could be a coworker, it could be a relative you've written off, it could be your spouse. Simply look at them again, up close, on purpose. It could be that homeless person that you avoid. But mercy always begins with a decision to stop crossing to the other side to avoid people who are needy. The second movement is this: mercy opens its heart. The Greek word that Luke uses for compassion is a gut level word. It describes something that happens to your insides, not your itinerary. This is not sentiment. It's the kind of feeling that rearranges your afternoon. It's the kind of thing that says, you know what, I'm going to be late. And there are 5 elders waiting on me in the room. But this guy needs help. I mean, it's the kind of thing that sees, that goes looking, so that the heart can be opened to people. It's not just if I happen to stumble upon somebody. Be looking. 3 centuries ago, a man in England named George Herbert, a country pastor, way out in the countryside of England, he walked 2 miles every night to sing evensong, as they called it in his church, at the Salisbury Cathedral. We'd call it a singspiration back in the 70s. I don't know what, night of worship or whatever. One night he arrives, covered, head to toe in mud. He shows up at church. And I mean, he is just flat out covered in mud. And his friends are startled. They said, what happened? And George Herbert explained that he'd come upon this poor man whose horse had gotten stuck in mire on the side of the road. And he said it was extremely deep. Horse couldn't get out. We couldn't get out. Rather than send somebody else, he took off his coat, got down in the mud, and helped free both the man and the horse. And then he gave the man some money for his trouble. A friend of Herbert said, that's, come on, man, you're a pastor, you're a scholar, you write hymns, that's a little bit beneath your standing, which is a, very polite 17th century way of saying, sir, you have a PhD, not a shovel. Herbert's answer is worth memorizing. He said the thought of what he'd done would prove music to him at midnight. He wouldn't willingly let a day pass without comforting a sad soul or showing mercy to somebody. So this week, pick that one, right? That one person that you avoid, that you walk around, that you haven't brought it up. You know they're hurting. I don't want to get involved. Could even be somebody sitting across a little brick wall about this tall. That is chesed, with mud on its knees. Mercy that only feels sorry from a distance really hasn't opened its heart yet. It's not biblical mercy to begin with, but it's just opened its eyes and it stopped and stared, or maybe averted them quickly and kept on moving. This week, when compassion rises up in you, when you feel the first flicker of maybe God sending me, no, he's not sending me. Don't do that. Don't do that. Slow down. Look. Stoop down. Don't manage that feeling back to somewhere where you can control it. Follow it and see where it takes you. The third movement, or rather, I don't want to do that yet. I'm going to stay right here. I don't want to go 50 minutes tonight, so I'm skipping a couple of pages here, or today. Third movement, mercy opens its hands. Mercy opens its eyes and sees. And that doesn't just not divert the eyes, but opens the eyes and is looking for the hurting, because the point of today is to glorify God by showing mercy. He hath shown the old mortal what is good and what the Lord requires of you. So the point of today is to open the eyes, open the heart, open the hands. This is where the Samaritan story gets real extravagant, which is preacher talk for uncomfortable. He bandaged the wounds. He poured on oil and wine. He put the man on his own donkey, meaning the Samaritan had to walk himself, brought him to an inn, paid the bill, and told the innkeeper to charge whatever else was needing, promising to settle up on his return. Friends, that is not a kind gesture. That is an open-ended check with no limit. Mercy that cost you nothing, didn't cost you anything. Which means it wasn't mercy. It was convenience. Wearing mercy's clothes. We saw that kind of mercy on a highway in New York in 2005. You read about it. I read about it. It was on the news. We saw it. Victoria Ruvalo was driving home with a frozen turkey in her front seat that had come through her front window, thrown by a kid who thought that it would be funny. Crushed her windshield, crushed her face, crushed much of her skull. Somehow, miraculously, she survived 10 hours of surgery and months of painful recovery. When the case came to sentencing, the young man who was responsible faced up to 25 years, and Victoria stood in that courtroom and asked the judge for leniency. She said, "There is no room for vengeance in my life. So whatever you do, please do not consider my injuries or my pain or what this cost me. Don't take that into account, please." He received 6 months. 6 months. He really should have gotten 25 years. 6 months, because this woman understood in her own body that mercy is not what you feel toward people who deserve it. It's what you give people who don't. Very often at real cost to yourself. When somebody's hungry, can't buy food, instead of quizzing them about how they got that way, you show up with food. Why? Because you love mercy. I've seen it in you. I've watched it. I've had my heart thrilled watching you show up with food to people you barely know, maybe haven't met yet, but they're at the church and you wanted to help. Why? You love mercy. When somebody's made a massive mistake in life, you don't point the finger. You lend a hand. You offer prayers. You show up and you take them out to dinner and you just pray for and with them. And I see you do this. I'm watching and I'm learning from you. There's a lonely person sitting by himself or herself. I've watched you do this. You walk over, you say hello, you say good morning. Might not be comfortable, but that's not making any kind of an interesting point. You do it. You extend a welcome. Why? Because you love mercy. I've seen you love mercy. You show up at hospitals. You show up at funeral homes. You send cards. You make phone calls. Why is that, church? Why? Because you received mercy. And you give mercy. And you've come to love mercy. It's Jesus touching the leper. I mean, nobody else would get near. It's Jesus standing between an accused woman and the stones meant to destroy her. It's Jesus welcoming Zacchaeus, restoring Peter, forgiving the executioners, promising paradise to a dying thief who had nothing to offer. I know you love mercy, First Christian Church, because you've experienced it. You've been on the receiving end, and you know what it's like to be alone and afraid and empty and cold and hungry. You love mercy. So here is a practical, eye-opening, heart-opening, hand-opening truth. Whatever mercy is costing you right now, an apology you don't feel like extending, funds you plan to spend some other way, a debt you could call in but won't, a grudge you could nurse but decide to release, that cost is not a sign that you're doing it wrong. It may be the only proof you'll ever receive that you're doing it right, that it cost you and you felt it. I mean, don't ever forget that long before we were ever merciful to anybody, we were the man in the ditch. We were the bystander. I mean, we're not the bystanders in Jesus' story, and we're sure as heck not Jesus. You know, we're the casualty. We're the one in desperate need. Micah's not talking about abstract ideas. He's talking about blood. He's talking about tears. So God, who owed us nothing, crossed the road, unlike the Levite and he crossed the road to be with us. He crossed the road anyway. He didn't just wish good upon us from a distance. He showed up, got in the dirt with us, paid the bill we could never cover. In the currency of his own son's blood, he paid it. Micah asks, what does the Lord require of us? Did you know he spent, I won't ask if you read it this week, but it's your assignment again this week. He spent the first 5 chapters listing, at least in part, what the Lord had done for them. Mercy received, friends, is the only fuel for mercy given. Draw on that. Look at what you've received. Look at what Christ has done for you. If your mercy tank feels a little empty this morning, and I've come in thinking, I hear you, preacher, but I'm all mercied out. You know, I'd like for somebody to meet me at the back door and give me some mercy, right? So, if you're feeling a little mercy depleted, it's not because you need to try harder. It's because you've forgotten how full your tank was the day God found you bleeding and did not walk past. He called you to himself. I want to speak directly to somebody here today who is exhausted. I mean, you are tired. You're done. You're just not sure where to turn or what to do. I mean, you've been living a life that's kind of like the treadmill of performance, right? You're trying to be good enough, moral enough, religious enough, try to make God happy, and you are tired. I don't want anybody to hear that in last week's sermon or this sermon, because this is not about do better, try harder. Even though he says, act justly, love mercy, which implies you're going to be doing it. I don't want you to hear that God's giving this and you have to attain that or whatever. The cross of Jesus is the place where perfect justice and perfect mercy met. The debt was paid and you don't have to earn it. You just have to receive it. You have to accept it. We're going to sing a song here in just a minute that will give you an opportunity to make whatever decision God's put on your heart. And I don't know what it is. But you've probably already thought about it. We've already seen that the cross is basically mercy that rolled up its sleeves and said, I'm getting to work for you. We've seen that. But maybe it's time to see a little more clearly that mercy in our lives that we have received is supposed to be the mercy that we give to other people. It's not what you feel toward people who deserve it. It's what you give to people who don't. We're going to pray. We're going to sing. I don't know what God's put on your heart, but whatever it is, don't push him away. Don't tell God later. Don't tell God it'll be another time. Maybe where you are in your life, you need to pray. You need to bow your heads and pray to God today to give you the grace to see those who are in need, to see them, to be moved, and then to reach out to them. Because, real mercy, it sees, it stops, and it stoops. And maybe it's time to do that. Maybe you need to confess Jesus as Lord and Savior for the very first time and be baptized in Him this morning. We want to give you the opportunity to do that. I'm right here ready to receive you. If you're looking for a church home, we would love to be your church family. Maybe God's put that on your heart today. I don't know what it is, but don't tell God no, whatever He's telling you to do. Let's stand.